"Hey Luna, want to dance with us?" Sophia's invitation echoed through the Riverside Classical Dance Academy, but the mocking tone made it clear that this was anything but a genuine invitation. Can you believe what's coming next? Luna Martinez was only 12 years old when she found herself in the center of that circle of elegant girls, her imported point shoes contrasting sharply with her worn sneakers. While her mother, Carmen, cleaned the mirrors in the main studio, Luna waited for the end of the day sitting in the corner as she always did. The prestigious academy was a world apart. Daughters of businessmen, judges, and doctors glided across the waxed floor as if they had been born with wings on their feet. Luna, with her extra pounds and dark skin, was just the invisible daughter of the cleaning lady until Sophia decided to make her the afternoon's entertainment. "Come on, don't be shy," insisted Madison, the unofficial leader of the group. At 14, she had already won 3 first places in state competitions. "I bet you know all the steps from watching so much." The other girls laughed, their perfect buns bouncing as they formed a semicircle around Luna. It was Thursday, 5:30 p.m., and Ms. Williams had left for a meeting, leaving the students to rehearse on their own. Carmen, on the other side of the studio, pretended not to listen as she scrubbed the floor with extra force. She knew that tone well. She had grown up hearing variations of it her entire life. "How about we try that sequence from Swan Lake we were practicing?" suggested Sophia, her blue eyes sparkling mischievously. "You know the really hard part with the 32 fouettes." Luna remained motionless for a moment, her dark eyes scanning each face around her. There was something in that look, a calmness that didn't belong to a 12-year-old about to be publicly humiliated. "Okay," she replied simply, rising from her chair. Wait, is she really going to do it? What none of those privileged girls could have imagined was that Luna carried a secret that would turn that afternoon of planned humiliation into something none of them would ever forget. As her small hands adjusted her plain t-shirt, Luna took a deep breath. Her bare feet touched the cold studio floor and something changed in the air. The mean giggles began to subside when they saw the girl's upright posture, the way she positioned her arms, as if that sturdy body had suddenly found a language that transcended any aesthetic standard. Carmen stopped cleaning, her eyes widening. She knew that posture. She had seen it before in secret during nights when she thought no one was watching. If you're enjoying this story of courage, don't miss what happens next. Subscribe to Black Voices because what's about to happen will rewrite everything they thought they knew about talent, grace, and the true meaning of dance. The surprise on the girls' faces was almost comical. Madison, accustomed to being obeyed without question, blinked a few times before processing that Luna had actually accepted the challenge. "Really?" Sophia laughed. But there was a nervous note in her voice. "You're really going to try 32 fouettes? Girl, that takes years to master. I can only do 16 in a row myself." The other girls moved closer to get a better view of what promised to be an embarrassing spectacle. Some had already pulled out their cell phones, clearly planning to record the humiliation to share later on school social media. Luna walked to the center of the studio with disconcerting calm. Meanwhile, out of the corner of her eye, Carmen watched the scene unfold. She knew that posture well. The same calm Luna displayed when the kids at school made fun of her mother for being just a cleaning lady, or when the mean comments about her weight echoed through the hallways. "Mom, you have to see this," one of the girls whispered to another, turning on her cell phone camera. "The cleaning lady's daughter thinks she can dance ballet." Carmen felt her fist tighten around the cleaning rag, but she forced herself to keep working. She had taught Luna from an early age, never let them see you break. When they underestimate you, that's when you show them who you really are. Madison crossed her arms, striking the pose of a stern judge. "Let's be fair, girls. If she can do at least 10 fouettes without falling, we'll be impressed." The condescension in her voice was so thick you could cut it with a knife. "And if she doesn't?" asked Sophia, already relishing the anticipated victory. "Then she promises never to pretend she belongs in our world again," Madison replied, her eyes flashing with calculated cruelty. "No more sitting there watching our rehearsals like one of us." The words cut through the air like sharp blades. It was more than a bet. It was a sentence of social exclusion, an attempt to completely erase Luna's presence from the space she had quietly frequented for years. Luna stood motionless in the center of the studio, absorbing every poisonous word. What those girls didn't know was that during all those years of watching from the outside, she hadn't just been dreaming. In the early mornings, when the studio was empty and Carmen did the heavy cleaning, Luna practiced. Carmen had grown up in Venezuela, where she had learned folk dance before life brought her to the United States in search of better opportunities. On nights when they finished late at the studio, mother and daughter took advantage of the empty space. Carmen taught Luna not only the steps she had observed during daytime classes, but also the inner strength that came from her roots, the deep connection between music and soul that transcended any formal technique. When you dance, Carmen always said, you're not trying to impress anyone. You're talking to something bigger than all of us. Madison clapped her hands impatiently. Let's get on with it. I have tennis in an hour and I don't want to be late because of this situation. Luna took a deep breath, closed her eyes for a moment, and connected with something those privileged girls could never buy with their parents' money. Pure authenticity. When she opened her eyes again, there was something different in her gaze. An intensity that made even Carmen stop cleaning completely. What? What none of those young ballerinas could have imagined was that they were about to witness not just a dance, but a demonstration that true talent is not developed in expensive classes or equipped studios. It is born from the need to express a soul that refuses to be silenced, even when the whole world tries to stifle its voice. The silence in the studio was almost suffocating. Luna closed her eyes and for a moment was transported back to those special early mornings she shared with Carmen. It was in those intimate moments when only mother and daughter occupied the sacred space of dance that the real magic happened. Carmen had grown up in Caracas, where her grandmother, Mercedes, had been a renowned Venezuelan folk dancer. Before economic hardship forced the family to immigrate to the United States, Carmen had absorbed not only the traditional movements, but also the philosophy behind them. Dance doesn't come from the muscles, it rises. It comes from the heart and flows down to the feet. For 3 years, on nights when they finished cleaning late, Carmen transformed the main studio into a private school for Luna. She didn't just teach the classical ballet she observed during the day, but a unique fusion that combined European technique with the expressive Latin force that ran through her veins. Look, Luna, Carmen whispered during those secret lessons. These girls dance perfectly, but without soul. You will dance imperfectly, but with so much heart that no one will be able to look away. Madison drummed her fingers impatiently, her Apple Watch showing that they had already lost 15 minutes of that entertainment. Can we start already or do you need more time to come up with an excuse? Sophia laughed, adjusting the camera angle. Let her concentrate. It'll be even funnier when she tries and fails miserably. My mom always says everyone has to know their place in society. What none of the girls knew was that Luna had spent the last 6 months preparing specifically for this moment. Not because she foresaw this particular humiliation, but because Carmen had noticed the cruel looks and whispered comments that had been intensifying every day. One day, Carmen had said months ago, they're going to try to break you, and when that day comes, you'll be ready to show them who you really are. Carmen had used her limited savings to buy used point shoes from a retired ballerina. In the early mornings, she taught Luna not only the movements, but how to transform every emotion, anger, sadness, hope, into pure physical expression. Across the studio, Carmen did something she had never done during work hours. She stopped cleaning. She knew what was about to happen, and she needed to witness every second of it. Luna took a deep breath and assumed fifth position, her bare feet finding perfect balance on the cold floor. The girls continued laughing, but Carmen noticed something they missed. The subtle change in Luna's posture, the way her shoulders aligned as if an invisible string was pulling her toward the ceiling. 32 fouettes, Luna said softly, more to herself than to the others. Let's see what I'm capable of. Madison rolled her eyes. Honey, I've had 3 years of private lessons with the best teacher in the state, and I still struggle with 16. Do you really think? The words died on her lips as Luna executed her first fouette. It wasn't perfect by classical technical standards, but there was something mesmerizing about the way she controlled the movement, as if each turn carried a story, an emotion that transcended pure technique. Her arms didn't move with the ethereal delicacy of traditional ballerinas, but with an expressive strength that held the eye. Second fouette, third, fourth. Sophia's mocking smile began to falter. On her phone screen, she could see that something extraordinary was happening, but her mind refused to process it fully. Carmen felt tears welling up in her eyes. She recognized every movement, the secret lessons, the whispered advice, the fusion of techniques they had created together. But there was something else there, something Luna had developed on her own. A connection to the music that seemed to come from a place deeper than any formal training. 10th Fouette, 11th, 12th. The giggles ceased completely. Madison lowered her arm slowly, the arrogant smile turning into an expression of growing confusion. It had taken her 2 years to be able to do 12 consecutive fouettes with proper technique. Luna kept spinning, and with each movement, it became clearer that this was not luck or chance. It was the result of preparation, dedication, and a natural talent that had been carefully cultivated away from prying eyes. When Luna executed her 20th fouette, something changed in the air of the studio. Even the most resistant girls began to realize that they were witnessing something special. It wasn't just technique. It was pure art born from a young soul's need to express itself despite all the barriers imposed by the world. Carmen finally understood that all those months of preparation hadn't been just about teaching Luna to dance. They had been about teaching a 12-year-old girl that she had the right to take up any space, to dream any dream, and to never ever let anyone define her limits based on their prejudices and privileges. 25th Fouette, 26th, 27th. And it was when Luna passed the 30 fouettes mark that it became clear to everyone present that this was not just a demonstration of technical skill. It was a silent but powerful statement that true talent knows no social, economic, or ethnic barriers, and that sometimes the greatest strength is born in the very places where the world expects to find only weakness. 32 fouettes, 33, 34. Luna continued spinning with a precision that defied all logic. Madison felt her legs weaken and had to lean on the bar to keep from falling. In 14 years of life, raised in the privileged world of elite ballet, she had never witnessed anything like it. "That's not possible," whispered Sophia, her voice trembling as she continued to film. But now, for completely different reasons. What had begun as documentation of humiliation had turned into a record of something extraordinary. Carmen could no longer hold back her tears. Every movement Luna made was a validation of all the sacrifices, the early mornings cleaning offices to pay for used ballet shoes, the sleepless nights teaching techniques she herself had learned by watching for years, the entire weekends practicing in silence so as not to disturb the neighbors in her tiny apartment. 40th Fouette, 41st, 42nd. One of the youngest girls in the group began to cry silently, not out of mockery, but out of something she couldn't yet name. It was like watching a miracle happen before her eyes. A complete redefinition of everything they believed about talent, elegance, and what it really meant to be a ballerina. "My God," whispered a voice from behind the group. Ms. Williams had returned from her meeting just as Luna passed the 40 mark. She stopped at the door, her briefcase falling to the floor with a thud, unable to process what her trained eyes were seeing. "How does a 12-year-old girl do 45 consecutive fouettes?" Williams whispered to herself, recognizing not only the impressive technique, but something deeper, a connection to the music that transcended any formal training she knew. Luna finally stopped on the 45th fouette, not because she was exhausted, but because she felt she had proven her point. Her bare feet found the floor with a final grace that echoed through the studio like a definitive exclamation point. The silence that followed was deafening. Madison was the first to break it, her hands shaking visibly. Where did you learn to do that?" "I've been taking classes for 8 years with the best teachers in the state and I've never made it past 16 fouettes." 45 fouettes, repeated one of the other girls as if she needed to say it out loud to believe it. "I've never seen anyone do 45 fouettes in a row, not even in the professional videos from the American Ballet Theater." Sophia was still holding her phone, but her hands were shaking so badly that the image was completely blurred. The video she had planned to use to humiliate Luna on social media was now evidence of something that would change everything. Not just for Luna, but for all of them. "Luna!" Ms. Williams' voice cut through the silence, laden with a reverence she had never directed at a 12-year-old. "We need to talk now. What you just did, that's not normal. That's exceptional." Carmen quickly dried her eyes and approached her daughter, her arms wrapping around the small shoulders that had just carried the weight of years of prejudice and underestimation. Estoy orgullosa de ti, mija, she whispered in Spanish, her voice breaking. Ella Mercedes estaría tan orgullosa. Madison looked around as if waiting for someone to explain how her reality had been completely turned upside down in a matter of minutes. Her carefully constructed world of privilege and superiority had crumbled before a girl they considered inferior. I need to sit down, one of the other girls murmured, sliding down the wall to the floor. Did that really happen? Did she really do 45 perfect fouettes? Said Ms. Williams, approaching slowly. It was the expression, the musical connection, the stage presence. Luna, how many years have you been studying ballet formally? Formally, Luna smiled, her eyes meeting Carmen's. I've never studied formally, Ms. Williams. But my mother has been teaching me for 3 years. She learned from my great-grandmother, who was a principal dancer at the Teresa Carreño Theater in Caracas. The impact of this revelation was like a bomb in the studio. All those girls with their expensive $200 an hour lessons in European credential teachers had been outdone by a child who had learned dance in the wee hours of the morning from a cleaning lady who had never set foot in a formal ballet school. Your phone, Luna said calmly, holding out her hand to Sophia. I'd like to see the video you recorded. Sophia hesitated for a moment, but handed over the device with trembling fingers. Luna watched a few seconds of the recording, observing her own performance with critical, mature eyes. You can post that video anywhere you want, she said, returning the phone. I'm sure a lot of people would like to see what happens when we judge someone by their appearance instead of giving their talent a real chance. Madison finally found her voice, but now she sounded small and vulnerable. I'm sorry, Luna. I'm really sorry. We didn't know you were, that you had this gift. That I was what? Luna asked gently, but with a firmness that made Madison swallow her words. Different from you? That's exactly what I am. And that's exactly why I can do things you never imagined possible. Ms. Williams watched the interaction with growing fascination. Luna, would you be interested in formal lessons? Because after what I just witnessed, I can guarantee that any academy in the country would love to have you as a student. Carmen interjected gently. Professor, we can't afford the tuition here. I work as a cleaning lady because I need to support my daughter, not because I choose to. Full scholarship, Williams replied without hesitation. Private lessons, participation in competitions, everything. A dancer with this kind of natural talent cannot be wasted because of financial issues. The sound of applause began softly, coming from Madison herself. She clapped slowly, tears streaming down her cheeks. In all my years of dancing, she said, I have never witnessed such an impressive display of raw talent. Luna, you are amazing. One by one, the other girls began to clap as well. It wasn't the condescending applause Luna knew so well, but genuine recognition from someone who had completely redefined her expectations of what was possible in the world of dance. Sophia looked at her phone, then at Luna. Can I post this video? But not as a joke. Like inspiration. I think the world needs to see this. Luna nodded, a small smile touching her lips. You can post it, but make sure you give it a title that tells the truth. That real talent has no color, no social class, and definitely can't be bought with expensive tuition. But Luna knew that this afternoon represented more than a demonstration of technical skill. As words of admiration and apology filled the studio, she could feel that something fundamental had changed. Not just in the way those girls saw her, but in the way she saw herself and her place in the world of classical dance, proving that sometimes true revolution begins with a single dance step performed by someone the world completely underestimated. 3 months later, Sophia's video had gone viral with over 15 million views. The title she chose, 12-year-old proves real talent has no color or class, made Luna Martinez the youngest and most talked about ballerina in the country. Riverside Academy was never the same again. Not only did Ms. Williams fulfill her promise of a full scholarship for Luna, she completely overhauled the admissions program. After witnessing what Luna did, she explained in a national interview, I realized that our academy was wasting extraordinary talent because of prejudices disguised as aesthetic standards. Madison Thornfield, who had previously considered herself the undisputed star of the Academy, now shared the main stage with Luna in the most important performances. The experience had been humiliating at first, but transformative in the long run. Luna taught me that being the best doesn't mean being perfect according to old standards, Madison confessed on her personal blog, which now promoted diversity in dance. It means being authentic and connecting with something bigger than technique. Sophia became one of Luna's biggest supporters, using her social media platform to promote other unconventional young talent. The video that began as an attempt of humiliation was now used in dance schools across the country as an example of how true talent transcends social barriers. Carmen was promoted to maintenance coordinator at the Academy with a salary that allowed the family to move into a larger apartment. More importantly, she was invited to teach Venezuelan folk dance classes, sharing with a new generation of students the cultural richness that had been passed down through generations. The Riverside Academy implemented the Luna Martinez program, a full scholarship system specifically geared toward young people from marginalized communities with raw talent and a passion for dance. Luna, despite her young age, became an official mentor for the program, helping other children who, like her, had been underestimated by society. In less than a year, Luna had won 3 national junior competitions. Not only for the impeccable technique she had developed, but for the magnetic presence that transformed each performance into a unique emotional experience. Dance critics began to talk about a new school of classical ballet, one that combined technical perfection with emotional authenticity. Luna's story reached the ears of directors at the American Ballet Theater, who offered her a position in their young talent program. Carmen and Luna visited New York, where Luna had the opportunity to meet principal dancers who shared similar stories of overcoming adversity and fighting systemic prejudice. During an interview with Dance Magazine, Luna was asked how she dealt with the pressure of being a symbol of change in the world of classical dance. "I don't dance to prove anything to anyone," she replied with a maturity that surprised everyone. "I dance because it's who I am. If that inspires other people to pursue their dreams, then my dancing has an even greater purpose." The most significant transformation took place at the Academy itself. The environment that had once been dominated by toxic competitiveness and social exclusion became a space for collaboration and celebration of diversity. Girls from different backgrounds, bodies, and styles now danced together, each bringing her unique authenticity to the art they all loved. Carmen watched Luna's classes with tears in her eyes, remembering the words of her grandmother, Mercedes. "La danza es el language del alma. Mi hija, cuando el alma habla, todo el mundo escucha." Dance is the language of the soul. My daughter, when the soul speaks, everyone listens. A year after that transformative afternoon, Luna received an invitation to participate in the International Young Dancers Gala in Paris. She would be the official representative of the United States, an honor reserved for the country's most promising talents. The girl who was once called out to dance as a joke would now represent her country on the most prestigious stage in the world of classical dance. The night before her trip to Paris, Luna returned to the studio where it all began. Alone in the space that had once witnessed her humiliation, she danced one last time before the big performance. It was no longer 45 fouettes she was performing, but a free dance, a silent conversation with all the girls who, like her, dreamed of proving they belonged in places where others said they had no place. Luna Martinez's story proved that true talent knows no color, social class, or aesthetic standards imposed by society. More importantly, it showed that when we face prejudice with dignity, authenticity, and preparation, we not only win, we transform the world around us, creating spaces where others like us can dream bigger than we ever thought possible. If this story of courage and transformation touched your heart, subscribe to Black Voices for more stories that prove that true power lies in never letting others define our limits, and that sometimes the greatest revolution begins with a single dance step performed by someone the world completely underestimated.